So it was a brilliant idea, and as you and I have discussed so many times, ideas are great, but building them into bigger companies is really hard. So what was it like selling that in to a company like Citi, trying to explain something very, very different to a lot of really smart guys?
Well, it would have been a lot harder had you not helped us, right? So one of the things that Citi Ventures did with us that was pretty beneficial for us is that they almost acted like a parent. And it was because it takes a lot of effort to go penetrate a large organization like Citi. There's lots of people. It's like a country, right? And you have all the problems of a country. There are people who don't like each other sometimes. So you have huge problems, and so we needed a lot of help in penetrating Citi and expanding within Citi. And so that was really, we really appreciate your help there. We couldn't have really done it without the help of Citi Ventures.
And I think it's part of the world we're living in is understanding that all industries are suddenly coming to grips with, I love this line Tim Geithner says, we live in a dark, messy, scary, uncertain world. It's true. And it's data that is, I think, beginning to be the promise of helping these industries find their ways to new growth.
Absolutely. I think it's about data, and it's also about, if people have looked at the demand for data scientists, for example, right? If you look at the Google trend search for data scientists, it looks like an increasing exponential. Luckily, we don't make people at an exponential rate, right? That's very good for the earth. But it also means that we are going to have to scale the scant number of data scientists that we have. And to your point, it's going to have a profound impact in a lot of industries: banking, financial services, retail, the government.
Healthcare, you've done some amazing things in healthcare.
Absolutely. Healthcare is something that I'm personally very passionate about, right? They've raised billions of dollars on care that is not well delivered. And one of the big problems in healthcare is this problem of care variation management, right? Very difficult machine intelligence problem. What we are able to do in that space is to basically discover patterns of optimal care and operationalize them in a hospital system. Right? It's not the easiest vertical to sell into, but as a company, we are very passionate about healthcare. So we do the best that we can.
Well, long lead time sales periods are really tough for a startup.
Yeah, the sales cycles are long. The deals are bigger though, and the impact that you can have is bigger, right? So when you wake up in the morning, you can look yourself in the mirror and say that I'm actually going to make a change in the world because of what we did here.
One of the things that, as we've known each other several years now, and watching you take learnings from one industry and then bring it back into us as an idea that Citi could use.
Yeah.
Talk about how that process came about.
Yeah, so as an academic, right, I saw this happen all the time, which is the easiest way to get academic research done was to read papers in not your discipline, steal ideas from there and apply it to your discipline. And I think that's something that works universally. So, for example, there is a certain set of algorithms that are used very frequently in biology that nobody ever uses in financial services because they just don't know. And that's the power of automation. If you are able to automate the selection and execution of these algorithms, you don't have to know.
It's fascinating because, by the way, it worked. And IASD is involved in some of the most complicated, most critical compute problems that Citi does across multiple of our businesses. And it was a long time going up the mountain together.
Yeah.
But the good thing was we broke through with the toughest guys in the business.
Absolutely.
And when people heard they were listening to you, everybody started, how that works, right? Everybody lines up. But I think it is an important lesson for this crowd that if you're going to sell into the enterprise, you need a champion who really believes in you and can help you get to the right place in the company, because otherwise you're just going to waste a huge amount of time and you can't afford that, right? So at least getting the assistance to get into the right place in the enterprise is
absolutely, it's very critical.
Yeah.
So Debbie, from your perspective, what has been the most surprising for you, right? When do you look back and say, oh my God, that was awesome, that was surprising?
Yeah, I think it was really watching, frankly, the guys we were talking about. It's so important, I'm not even allowed to exactly say what it is. That's what such a big deal is. and I got called into, come into New York, and they said, wow. And we're really, really blown away because it helped us. We have so much data, we have zettabytes of data. And you and I were talking about earlier when the old days of data analytics, there was a little set of data and you had certain people that could help you kind of query that same database. Now our issue is we don't know what we're looking for. And that's what's so powerful. And I think when we were down at 388 Greenwich, and the guys who run really one of our most critically high-powered businesses, speed businesses, suddenly saw something that didn't make sense to them. So the way IOSITY works is they'll show you a shape of the data, and if there's something kind of errant in the shape, Gurjeet will say, you need to go look there. It may be a negative you don't understand, or it may be a huge opportunity. And what they were showing our team was the head of that business, who is like an insane brainiac, said, that doesn't make sense to me. Then you took him through it, and I watched this guy go, wow, I'm in. I'm learning. I don't know the answers. And that is a lot of what I think people are coming to grips with is big businesses, you've been paid to always know the answer.
Right.
And with this much data, you can't, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The smartest people in the business got there because they were smart. They knew the right questions to ask. And it's almost antithetical to come in there and say, oh, no, hang on, right? Let the software go figure out stuff in your data, and you might be surprised. And they often are.
Yeah, it's amazing, but then they knew what to do with it. But it's I think, a really fascinating time in what you do, Gurjeet, that is, it's upending really how business is done. And there's a humility that's being required of people who have run major industries, like you're saying, healthcare and manufacturing and banking, and they're all going through pharmaceuticals, are all going through just radical shifts. And without having that humility to be able to say, in the world we're operating in, I need to learn new skills. And we call it, as you know, new skills and new ways of working.
Absolutely.
And you make that happen.
Yeah. I think one of the critical things that we have to look forward to in the future is this idea that machine intelligence and human intuition, we need to go merge them together.
Okay, so let's go to that AI place. What happens?
It's a nice place.
You're already there, right?
So look, what happens is, it's a huge problem in the sense that there is a lot of data, and if the current tools that we have today, as you were saying earlier, are the kinds of tools which allow you to ask questions, right? So we have spent a lot of our time in software development, building better, bigger, faster databases to reduce the amount of cost that it takes to ask a question and get an answer. And we've also spent a lot of our time building business intelligence tools that allow a larger number of people to ask questions, right? And the idea being if more people can ask questions faster, then the organization runs faster. The problem of large data sets and the complexity of data is that the number of possible questions far outnumbers the number of questions that you're ever going to ask, no matter how fast your database becomes and no matter how many people are able to ask questions. So we are going to have to meet technologies that automatically discover information from data. Now, calling it AI, I don't know. AI is a really confusing term because people confuse it for Terminator and all sorts of things, right? But I think there is a legitimate need for machine intelligence solutions that are able to fill in or augment our gaps. Right?
Yeah, I think it's a super exciting time, but there's just the unknowns are so significant.
That's correct.
And so, have you seen in the last several years how you've been really seeing success in many industries? What's next? Where do you go from here?
So the next chapter really is making it operational, right? So as we look at large organizations, so an organization like Citi, for example, right? You have thousands of people who do roughly the same thing. So for example, you have, I believe, 10 or 15,000 customer service reps, right? And still the wait times, right? The wait times when somebody calls Citi are like 15 to 30 minutes, right? And it's not because of a lack of trying. Clearly,
really, I didn't know it was that bad.
Wow, it is. But you're doing a lot there, right?
Yeah.
If you think about what reduces this latency, and anytime you reduce latency in a business process, you make money one way or another.
Yeah.
What does it take to reduce that latency? And my contention is that you need AI and machine intelligence types of technologies, right, to automate or help out people become significantly more efficient. And so, if you have 5,000 people, maybe you can get as much work out of them as 10,000 people.
Well, and that really is going to end up meaning completely redesigning processes, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what's exciting to us, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Super, because I think the opportunities are huge. When you're selling in, what a lot of these folks will be facing as they're looking at how they really grow their businesses, what's been the reaction of the technology part of the organization to what you're doing?
It's very polarizing, right? So either people are completely bought into the technology and completely are interested in it and push it through no matter what, or it is completely the opposite, which is I am the smartest person in the room, how could this possibly ever work, on a philosophical level, right? It's very polarizing. I think for an enterprise software company, though, one piece of advice here, right, for people who are trying to attack that market is to really understand all the components that you're going to need, right? And that's one of the things that I didn't know coming out of Stanford. There was no book that says, here's a manual for building enterprise software companies. And there could be one, right? So you need to know things like you need sales development reps, you need product marketing people, you need all these sorts of various standard ingredients that it's just not common knowledge.
Yeah, you really have to create, we talk about end-to-end process, so
That's
really
good.
understanding, the technology is awesome,
That's
but
good.
what is it going to take inside an enterprise to really penetrate that in a way that's
And make it
worth
operational.
Yes, this operational thing is huge.
Absolutely.
Because it's often where startups fail. They can have the breakthrough, but that ability to scale and then to really understand how you build your organization to serve particularly multiple industries, right?
I remember one of my board members at one point said, anybody half smart can build a $10 million a year enterprise software business. But if you're going to have to grow to $100 million, you have to build a machine.
I thought we were going for $1 billion. Come on.
Well, we'll go, we'll get to $1 billion. 100 million comes in the way, right?
It is super exciting, and I think we're so proud to be investors with IOSD.
So from your perspective as City Ventures, how do you see the process of commercializing things outside of City? Because that must be a...
Yeah, it is. I think it's a really hard business. It's the hardest part because we passionately believe that we've always been the champion of the entrepreneur and have been, I've had a chance to be involved in commercializing things like VMware and Palo Alto Networks. And let me tell you, no matter how great it is, that road up the mountain is hard, super hard. And I even ran technology for All City. And a lot of those people used to work for me, and it's still hard, right? Because you're really tapping into people's fear of what's this going to do to my job, right? And so we're dealing with that challenge as you're selling in that environment, and it's super difficult because you kind of have to be, Gurjeet's so patient. Well, on the surface, not really, but you have to have a little bit of courage to stick that through, right?
It takes a while. It takes a while. So what's your advice for people here who might not have the benefit of City Ventures?
Yeah. Well, I really think if you're going to go into enterprise sales, find some board members who know what that's about, really understand the complexity of it, and make it a habit and really become very, very great at picking the kind of places. You do need a champion. You need an individual. You can identify industries, you can identify companies, but find somebody who you think really is going to be your champion. We call it being Sherpas, because we actually feel, we go up the mountain, we stay on top, and we bring you back down, because without that, it's just, it's not a great process for you. And you've got some extraordinary capabilities in this audience, but this is hard work. So I think between board members and then really doing a strong job of picking the kind of companies you're going to be in is really, really big.
So what are you excited about? What should people pitch you?
Well, I'm definitely excited about where we're going here. very much right now into blockchain, which is talk about hitting some very polarizing places in the organization.
Do you own any Bitcoin?
Yeah, no, I don't, because I always make it clear it's about blockchain, not Bitcoin. But what's fascinating is it's the same thing. It really upends because it's so revolutionary, and the promise of it is not unlike the promise of what you're doing with IASE. And I think it's a real challenge because people go back to, what does that mean to me? And I'll tell you, as you go through time, you find out almost everything has to do with that. When you're dealing with other people, they're constantly processing, boy, could I lose my job? This could upend what I'm doing. And what you're looking for are the people who you see, the lights go on, they're excited, and can really advise you in how to think about it. Because you're not going to get it right. I mean, it's going to take some...
It takes iterations. I think that was a key phrase there, right? People always think, what's in it for me? And the reason why it's important for enterprise software companies is because you will deal with so many people that it's easy to forget that everybody has only one motive, which is what is in it for me. Right? So it's important to remember that as you go through an enterprise sales cycle and make sure that you make your customer successful.
It really is critical, and having been on the other side of it, buying big software, and then of course the entrenched big names that we won't mention but are all in there. They say, oh, don't worry, we'll give it to you for free.
Right.
But IASE was able to really punch through that because it was so extraordinary. It wasn't just processing the data, it was unlocking new promise.
And we had to stick to our guns there because we were like, you're not getting anything for free from IASE. We just don't do that.
But that is what happens, when you start seeing, it's not unlike what we've watched with Airbnb and Uber. There's a reaction to it that is not particularly, productive, but it's like, well, we'll just give it away. And we've seen that happen in a lot of areas in technology, for sure, up and down the stack. And I don't think that's a long-lived strategy, but it is the part of really why it's so important of having an awesome idea, and then the ability and the passion to see it through. But I think what Gurjeet was telling you all is critical. It's operationalizing it. So really make sure you're getting people on your boards and advisors who really have been through that and can help you really think that through, because I think that's the secret. That's why you are where you're at.
Absolutely. If you have perseverance, you can learn it. You just have to find the right people and make sure you follow the advice.
So I'm always so happy to see him. Isn't he cool? It's an awesome company. Look it up. I think it's really, really an amazing day. And this is a great audience. I hope you guys are really having a lot of fun. And I think it's a very interesting time to be a startup.
Absolutely. Best of luck.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.